Tadzio Pacquement. First question, is the most beautiful name. Where did it come from?
Oh.
Tadzio.
It comes from the movie Death in Venice, and the book, and then the movie Death in Venice by Visconti.
Yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah.
Also, you're a young photographer, artist, but you seem to paint with the camera. How did this technique start? Is it a new technique, or?
Well, I'm coming to this slowly but surely, maybe. I started with more classic photography, and more I'm interested in movements and movements taken by the camera, and when still like a still photography, and but I began with several series before to come to this, because this is a new work I'm developing. I'm not exactly sure of the size and of the technique and everything. And at the same time, I'm leaving a little bit classic photography techniques for like printing on this canvas, which is quite a new technique, at least here. I don't know.
Is it the technique new, or is the canvas, the paper?
Well, the
new?
fact to print is quite new. Before you have a classic photographic paper, which I like very much, but I wanted to leave a little bit, and because I'm very interested in painting, but I'm not a painter, so it's also a way to be in between photography and painting, to use a camera, because this is my tool. I mean, I'm every day with. But finally, at the end, the image is printed on canvas, and canvas is like for a classic painting. So I like to move to painting in that way.
Does the canvas soften the image a little bit?
Yeah, it's very matte, so it does not reflect anything like here. So you get deeper inside the image, I think, and it's well. First of all, I was like this, a little far from the subject, and the glossy paper also make like a window, like a distance between me and the subject. And here I'm starting to be closer to the subject, to the people I'm photographing, and also with this matte texture, I get closer, I think.
But also, it seems to give a dimension. It almost is like a 2 or a 3-dimensional object, with a way. And is it just the angle of your camera?
Well, I don't know. At the same time, it's very strict, I think. I mean, lines are horizontal, vertical, or perfectly oblique, and people are very straight, and I like this. Well, in this specific picture, there is a dimension because of this bridge, but usually I like to have very flat things, and like here, well, there is a perspective, but not so much. I mean, you don't.
Also, the images that we're looking at here on the wall, do you always work with just a single individual in a picture?
In that series, yeah, I tried, because I wanted to analyze the link between urbanism and architecture and people. And I always feel in the cities this protection of the city, and at the same time oppression of the city, and it's like the one versus the other. And this feeling I had to analyze, and through these pictures, with always one person with like a huge city and a small people.
But that, yes, it brings a certain kind of loneliness.
Yeah.
To the image, a certain melancholia.
Yeah.
about not only the distance of you from the single person,
Mm-hmm.
but also just the overall feeling that you mentioned, the human being, human scale within the enormous city.
But I think there is a lot of loneliness also in these big cities because
Yes.
you have many people. Like here in China, it's difficult to have one person.
You said, used the term series. You work in a series?
Yeah, I mean, when you work, I mean, for me, it's like I'm analyzing something, so I'm making many pictures, the same subject. For example, this series today has around 50 pictures. And I have another one here, pictures I take in the trains when I am in the train, so when things are moving, so there is a lot of movement and blur parts. And this is a new one which is a kind of convergence of the two previous ones. It means there is a lot of movements, and it's also about people, and here it's underground, it's in a very cold light, and a lot of kind of loneliness also, and it's underground, so I mean it's not human, it's not natural light, and it's not a natural place, it's underground, but human is here.
But also the figure is very mysterious because you don't really see the figure. I mean, there's no features.
No.
Part of the body is missing in a way. It's all sort
kind
of blurred
ghost.
and blended.
I mean, I think we become like kind of ghosts.
Yeah.
I mean, we live underground and we live with electric light, and we wonder is it really human people or not? I don't know.
The earlier work seems to move from the figurative, and this is much more abstract.
Yeah. Well, it's more abstract and it's more painting also, and well, there is a well-known painting of Gerhard Richter in Chicago, the woman descending the staircase, and it was a big shock to me. I mean, I like Richter, and this specific painting was something incredible. So, and I was here 6 months ago, so maybe it's a big influence, I think. But abstract is very interesting because I think day by day I remove elements. I mean, I remove some details, and I come here, and I try to keep only the main subject, the main thing I want to talk about. So abstraction is, I think, somewhere I'm going to.
Does each series you do, like you said, that's China.
Yeah.
You've traveled all over the world for these series.
For this one, I traveled quite a lot, yeah. Mm-hmm. I went to China, I went to the US, I traveled in Europe, yeah. I needed to... I have some kind of photographic territories. So I have the train for one series. I have foreign countries for another one, because in Paris you don't find this kind of big skyscrapers, and it's not adapted to this subject. So Paris has always been my private life, let's say, and my working area is somewhere else. But now I'm starting to work in Paris with this.
This is not the first time you've worked in Paris.
No, but this series was not very developed in Paris. A little bit, a few images in La Défense, which is the business center of Paris. But inside Paris is like romantic and with nice buildings, and it's not this exactly.
What countries have you worked in?
Previously, you mean? I've been working in Asia, in Bangkok, in my previous life, let's say, as an engineer, and it was a great experience to live in Asia, and I love Asia, and actually it was the place where big cities became something important to me. I have been to New York before, and New York is very impressive, extra, but Bangkok is impressive, plus it's Asia, and it was my first time in Asia, and it was something different.
What was it about the series in Bangkok that
I didn't,
captured your imagination?
well, I didn't start this series in Bangkok, but it was a place where everything was different. So I discovered these big cities, and this is where I started to think, well, humanity is weird. I mean, to build these big skyscrapers because we have a lot of space, but we prefer to grow, to build high. And I started observing people walking in the streets, loneliness and craziness, and people running everywhere to work and never looking around. And this is something I'm trying to show in these pictures, that we always walk everywhere, never looking around, and we don't take time to look around. And I'm here, I'm taking pictures, but I'm aside this world, and I feel aside this world, and because I'm not inside anymore, I'm not in a business anymore, so I'm outside this. I'm looking at it, and I want to show people what they are doing, what they are, and what we are, because I'm inside at the end. But
a little while ago, you mentioned that you were in Bangkok or in Asia as an engineer.
yeah.
Now, how did you get from being an engineer to being an artist?
Well, it was not an easy choice, but well, I studied engineering, and this was very interesting actually, because I learned a lot of mathematics and physics and about movement especially. And I worked as an engineer, and but during my studies I made a lot of pictures actually. More than studying, maybe.
So it was more of a continuum
Sorry?
from engineering. It was more of a continuum from engineering to the arts. You were always an artist, even when you were an engineer.
I don't know. Maybe I've always wanted to be, but I didn't know it. So I went on with studying engineering, and I when I finished the studies, I said, okay, let's try. I mean, let's try to be an engineer. It was interesting, and this led me to Bangkok, which was very nice and interesting. And I came back to France after 1.5 years in Asia, and I started working in computers. I mean, creating websites, etc., which was nice. But one day I thought, well, let's try something else. I mean, this is not what I want to do all my life, so let's try something else.
But Tadzio, it sounds like a natural evolution, because I've always heard that many scientists think of themselves as artists. So there seems to be a very close correlation between science and, quote, the arts.
Oh yeah, or maybe we use science in arts. Maybe it's the opposite, I don't know. Because when I was an engineer, what I created, I didn't feel like being an artist. It's very not boring, but very straight and yeah, very serious. So, but now, I mean, what I did before is useful to me today. I mean, when I went to this exhibition of Jules Marais, like Muybridge, he's a French scientist and artist, and it was very interesting to me to see these pictures.
Were there other early influences? You mentioned Gerhard Richter
Yeah.
being so startling for you. And were there other early influences when you were
Yeah, I think that there was one very important exhibition, and maybe one image actually. It was an exhibition, I don't know exactly when, in the 90s, about Suzanne Lafont, a French photographer. And there was one picture named La Chute, the fall, and it's a picture. It's a portrait of a black and white of a guy, but it's reversed. It means the head is down and the feet are up, and this guy is head bended like this, and seems to suffer a lot. And I don't know. I was a teenager. I saw this, and it was something important. So Suzanne Lafont is very important, and also about movements there is Marais, and also Jacques-Henri Lartigue. He's a French also. He took picture all his life about his family, and a lot about movements. So he made some pictures of cars running very fast, but with the picture is still this car. Like it's about movement. It's very nice.
What series are in your mind? The new series?
Well, this is a new one, so it's less than 1 year. So I have only a few pictures, and I'm making some tests to decide on the sizes. And I think I'm here today. It's about humanity and loneliness, maybe.
You mentioned the light, daylight in the earlier series, and with this series it's artificial light.
Yeah.
You react to the color of light in different cities. You mentioned going around the world.
Yeah.
The light in the desert. You play with that as a vital component when you're composing.
Well, I don't really play with it. I think I'm using it. I mean, I'm using it as it is, as I find it. I think light is for sure important for colors, extra, but I like to use it as I find it where I am. I'm not really choosing. I mean, for this picture, for example, I didn't wait for the sun or whatever. And here, for sure, underground is always the same. So it's more flat, but it's more cold too. It's very cold, this light in the metro, and but for sure it's an important part of the work.
And that coldness, does that heighten the loneliness as well?
Yeah, also, yeah, sure. I feel that we are lonely. I mean, in that big world, and we don't take time to stop and to look around and to admire things, and especially when you go to business places, business centers in big cities, people running everywhere, and I think I want to, it's not a big message, but I want to tell people, look how lonely you are.
Have you exhibited the works for a long time?
I've exhibited this series and the train series a few months ago in an exhibition I organized with some other artists. The idea was to have different media, so there was one photographer, one sculptor, one painter extra. We were 10 artists. It was in a big empty flat in Paris. It was very nice. This is a way to show my work these days. And I should have normally an exhibition in next September in Paris, but it's not all set up yet, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tadzio, very, very much.
Thank you for coming to Paris.
Well, anytime. But also lots of luck. I think it will be very successful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.